What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday. Happy Masters Week, first of all. I'm Jack Veltri. Welcome to this week's edition of Fowl Balls. I'm joined by Gators Online senior writer, Nick Torre. How we doing, Nick?
Good. I think we just missed each other in Augusta, but it's one of my favorite weeks. It was awesome to get up there Tuesday for a practice round, and my complaints to Florida to not schedule their football spring game during Masters moving day were once again unanswered. So a busy week, catching as much Masters as I can, and then certainly on top of football, a great baseball series in Gainesville this weekend.
Yeah, and I definitely feel you on that because Shane Beamer was kind of talking about, scheduling the spring game during the Masters or during the RBC Heritage next week, which also takes place, I believe, in Hilton Head. So I understand it, man. And going to Augusta for the first time on Tuesday was unreal, like we talked about before the show started. It's seriously, it's a one-of-a-kind experience, and happy I was able to go. And yeah, Nick, speaking of this, South Carolina-Florida series, it's a rematch of the Super Regional last year, which we were both at, and a lot's changed since then, right? Both teams are not playing as good as they probably should be playing, right? Florida, I think especially, not playing their best ball right now. Just run me through what the kind of fan reaction is to what's been going on in Gainesville this season.
Furious. Next question. It's funny because I like to tell people get worked up over midweek games, and every coach can handle it differently. But for Florida, it's really just an opportunity to get young pitchers work. For that first month of the season, everyone is competing for SEC roles, and you can hit or pitch your way into a role once SEC play starts, or hit and pitch your way out of it. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays, especially when the first month of the season is 2 midweek games a week, it's really just used to see what you have. And then with 11.7 scholarships, Florida has a Bright Futures program where starting at a 3.0 in high school, you get money to stay in state at an in-state school. A lot of kids have Florida prepaid. So even before NIL, some of these kids were staying in state and going to Stetson, FAU, FIU, rather than leaving to go to, a South Carolina. And you would run into a Tuesday night pitcher against Stetson throwing 98. And you're like, what's happening here? So there's just a lot of talent in the state of Florida. So Florida fans were angry that the Gators were losing on Tuesday, and then they started SEC play 6-3. And then we're just finding ways to win on the weekend. Interesting note, despite being now 6-6, they've trailed at some point in all 12 SEC games. So even when they were 6-3, they were at one point in all 9 of those games losing the game. It's just been a real struggle with the pitching staff. Cade Fisher, who pitched really well in the Super Regional last year, earned the Friday night job. His ERA, I think, just climbed under 6 after being moved from Friday. Yeah, just under 7 then. So he was moved from Friday to the bullpen. He's kind of excelled in the bullpen. I think he's kind of a softer throwing lefty. He's 88 to 91. Maybe, as a starter, I think you're trying to save yourself. And we watched him start throwing 86-mile-an-hour fastballs. When he comes out of the bullpen, he only has to throw 2-3 innings. You'll see him crank it up to 94, and I think his stuff plays a little differently. And then Saturday, Liam Peterson just hasn't been able to figure it out. He's a top 5 NMLB draft pick potential in 2 years. And I think he just throws. I think you're in the process of learning in high school. When you throw 97, you can throw it right down the middle and guys won't catch up. At this level, you throw 97, and by the second time guys see you, they've timed it up. And he throws a lot of middle murder balls, is what I started calling them. And has just given up a ton of home runs this year. So he has been yanked from the starting lineup. South Carolina hits a bunch of home runs, and I think Kevin O'Sullivan saw that lineup and saw what Liam Peterson was throwing, and is going to try to figure it out. Florida's struggled on the weekend to win the first 2 games, and Jack Cagliano has been so good. I think he had a bad start at Missouri, but you couldn't ask him to be Superman and get you out of these holes every week. He was bound to have an off start. Florida would like that to be his only one last weekend at Missouri. But I think the pitching matchups with Brandon Neely on Friday, a TBD on Saturday, and Jack on Sunday tells me Florida's going to do whatever it takes to win Friday. And whoever is left available will throw Saturday. It might be a Johnny Holstaff situation.
Yeah. So Neely, I'm glad you brought up Neely because correct me if I'm wrong. He was the closer for the team last year, correct?
Yes.
I definitely remember him closing out a few games against South Carolina last year in that super regional. And honestly, Florida's pitching staff was phenomenal last year. I have PTSD from watching Hurston Waldrop, completely shut down South Carolina's line. I've never seen anything like that before. But I'm sure South Carolina's glad, they're not going to be facing a guy like that. With Neely specifically, how has that transition been from what you're seeing from the bullpen to a starter on a Friday?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to get drafted in July, and he's going to be drafted as a starter. Like, that's what he is. I think last year, when he came in as a freshman, he was kind of a midweek starter. And then, as freshmen do, you got to get put into the bullpen and you throw in different situations. Last year, his sophomore year, just lost out to Jack Caglione to be the Sunday starter and kind of fell into a closer role. He is undoubtedly one of Florida's best arms. And the Gators, Kevin O'Sullivan said he felt fortunate to have that kind of arm in the bullpen. Now, the problem is Florida's pitching staff was giving up so many runs that after 3 weekend series, Brandon Neely had the 7th most innings pitched. So you weren't even getting one of your best arms innings, and he wasn't affecting games or weekend series. So moving him into the starter role, I think the only issue he's really had has been stretching himself out, and that's just going to take time. If you've spent the better part of 2 years only coming out of the bullpen, his first start, he was cruising until like that 70 pitch mark, and then had a blow up inning. His last start, I think he was cruising until around 60, 65 pitches, and then kind of fell apart a little bit, or it might have been closer to 80. But his arm, will start battling that fatigue better the more they stretch him out. But he's a great pitcher with a 3-pitch mix, and Florida, I think, feels really confident and comfortable leaving him there on Friday.
I have to ask, with the pitching struggles, it makes me think because, a guy like BT Ryopel, who was, the Gators backstop last year, phenomenal guy, phenomenal hitter, that sort of thing, really made a big impact in that super regional, which South Carolina ended up losing. Do you feel like him not being back this year kind of has a lingering effect on why the pitching staff outside of a guy like Cags has really struggled this year?
Yeah, there's so many metrics in baseball right now, but you can't measure handling a pitching staff. You can't measure, hey, this guy's really good defensively framing, and he's going to steal strikes. And if you steal enough strikes, you start stealing outs. If you are really good at blocking the ball, your pitcher feels comfortable burying a slider in the dirt with a runner on third or a runner on second. That stuff allows your pitcher to pitch better. And I think BT was an above average catcher defensively, not the best, but an above average. And he really was just a leader in the locker room. And I think there were times where he would be able to calm guys down. And you're looking at that now. Luke Heyman's probably one of the better bats in Florida's lineup, but is a below average catcher. And we've seen Garrison, who is a senior transfer, Tanner Garrison, a senior transfer from Coastal Carolina, really start to take over that catching role. And he's a guy who I think one time Jack Caglione said Kevin O'Sullivan came out to the mound, and after the mound visit, he's like, all right, and instead of calling in or typing into the pitch comm, he's just, hey, we're going fastball. And Garrison goes back, gets down to his crouch, and types in cutter, slider. And Jack kind of looks at him, and he's like, hey, stay here, stay with me. And it's just those kind of intangible things that a catcher brings to the table. There's a reason why major league catchers are allowed to hit like 215 because of all the other things you do that help the pitching staff. And I think that's kind of what Garrison is. Now, at one point, he was hitting like 150, but he's gotten his average back up to 220. He's hit a couple home runs or 1 home run this year, some extra bases. I think he has 6 RBI. So he does enough offensively, but he really, really has been a game changer for Florida behind the plate.
Definitely. And with Caglione, just if you had to describe in one word what it's been like watching him this year, How would you describe for those who have no idea who Jack Caglione is?
Fun. It's I remember I was down at Miami and I was sitting next to the guys who run their, I think Florida uses Yacker Tech. They use the one that like golf made popular, the analytics to get launch angle and all that. And he hit a double or hit a single. It was hit really hard down the right field line. It got to the fence quick and they play him deep. And I turned and I was like, how hard was that? And they said 122. And I looked and I was like, was that a misread? Because 122 would be, I think, the second hardest ball hit in the major leagues last year.
Oh,
and then he's been up to 99, 100 on the mound. So just watching somebody who can hit a ball, he routinely has exit velocities of 115 to 118. And then when he pitches, he will routinely throw the baseball 97, 98, 99 miles an hour. That's just special. The biggest thing I think that maybe goes overlooked too is he's been unbelievable at first base defensively. That's a part of his game where he was never bad, but he's making exceptional plays now, whether it's chasing down foul balls and making great catches, picking balls at first, making diving plays. I think he's really rounded out his game. It'll be interesting to see when he's drafted what the team views him at. I think I view him more as a hitter because I think he'll play above average defense at first base, and he's a guy who might hit you 40 plus home runs a year. And he's walking more than he's striking out this season. So he's had a really refined approach at the plate, which is difficult because he is the number one person on everyone's scouting report right now. And we're seeing him get intentionally walked with runners on base, and teams really pitching around him. So it's been interesting to watch him mature. But yeah, he's I want to say one of a kind, but I think there's another guy out in Los Angeles that's also similar. So, but yeah, he's definitely fun to watch. Probably more fun if you're a Gator fan than a fan of another team. But if you're just a baseball fan, and you can take your fan hat off, he's a really fun player to watch. Super intense on the field.
Yeah, definitely. I always love seeing the highlights of him, following along with your Twitter and stuff. And it's just, it's unreal, dude. Like the stuff he was doing last year. It seems like it's carried over, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's hitting better this year. I think he had a couple hits on Tuesday and a loss to FSU. He's hitting 397 on the year with an OPS of 1286.
Oh my God.
He's got 52 hits, 17 home runs, 35 RBIs, 105 total bases, slugging 802. And like I said, he has 18 walks to only 14 strikeouts. And nobody is giving Jack just fastballs. He's having to, fans were, I think, mad at him early on in the year because he was swinging a lot of first pitch, swinging a lot of 0 counts. And teams, I think, were trying to surprise him by throwing fastballs early. And he was getting fastballs 0-0 and jumping all over him. That has changed. I don't think we'll see a lot of 0-0 fastballs this weekend.
No. And speaking of another guy that has been, I'm looking at it pretty good in the Gators lineup is the addition of Colby Shelton, who, played at Alabama, transferred to Florida during the offseason. What have you been seeing from him in his game this year?
He's on a major. He broke out of it a little bit, I think, with a couple of home runs in Missouri, but he has been on a major slide of late. Second on the team with 15 home runs, but also leading or second on the team with strikeouts with 40. Was just striking out at a crazy clip. The one thing I've been surprised with him has been last year he played third base in Alabama. He was an okay defender. He comes to Florida and wants to play shortstop, and I thought, man, that's not going to work out. Didn't think he had the range or the glove to really play an effective shortstop. South Carolina's had some great shortstops over the years. So has Florida. Between Richie Martin and Dalton Guthrie, Josh Rivera seemingly was here for 15 years, playing elite shortstop. But Colby Shelton has a couple errors on the year, but for the most part, makes every play, every routine play, and every once in a while will come up with a play you didn't think he'd be able to. Offensively, he's got to get back into a rhythm because of late, it's been a lot of swing and miss. They moved him up to the one hole, and I don't know if that messed with him or not. They've kind of been tinkering with the lineup because really they've leaned on 4 or 5 guys, and when those two or three of those 4 or 5 guys don't have a good game, it's been a struggle to score runs at all. And that of late has been Shelton, but he's certainly a guy who anytime he's up in the box could put the ball out on the street.
Yeah. When you look at Florida over the last 4 games, getting blown out by Florida.
I'd rather not.
Yeah. Getting swept by Missouri, going to Florida State, losing the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like the biggest – I'm sure there are a ton of problems, but if you had to narrow it down to one major issue you feel like this team still really has this late in the year, what do you feel like it is?
It's pitching. Florida's ERA is 6.33. It's got to be – I would have to go back and crunch some numbers, but it has to be the highest ERA a Kevin O'Sullivan team has ever had this late in the year. They walk a lot of guys, 146 walks. They've walked more batters as a pitching staff than their offense has walked. They strike out a lot of guys, but you're also giving free passes. You've hit 40 batters this year. You've walked 146. That's almost 200 free bases from a pitching staff. And I understand some of the struggles. Florida has 11 freshmen out of their 18 pitchers. 11 are freshmen. 3 of them, including the Gatorade National Player of the Year and Christian Rodriguez, underwent season-ending surgery before the year started. So of those 11 freshmen, you're only really using 8, or only 8 are available now. And you never know when things are going to click. Like Liam Peterson, I thought would be lights out. He carved up Florida's offense all fall. And has really struggled this season. The same can be said for Alex Philpott, who's super talented. And then Luke McNeely was a midweek starter to start the year. I think he gave up 16 earned runs over his first 8 innings. They stopped throwing him out of the to start games. They put him in the bullpen, and since SEC play started, he's been lights out. That ended, I think, at Missouri. He ended up taking the loss, wearing a loss, but in Missouri, Florida really just struggled to have any kind of situational hitting. We're talking about bases loaded, no outs, and 3 straight strikeouts. So they've been creative to find different ways to lose, but for the most part, it's been the pitching staff having big crooked number innings.
Yeah. If you're looking at, what are your keys, your 3 keys, if you had to pick them for this weekend for Florida, in order to go out there and beat South Carolina?
Yeah, it's gonna start Friday night with Brandon Neely. I think if Brandon Neely goes out, and really the best case scenario for Florida is Brandon Neely gives you 6 innings, and you can go Cade Fisher 7-8. Luke McNeely closes in the 9th, and you keep kind of both of those guys available. When Brandon Neely goes, if he can only go 4 innings or only go 5 innings, you're going to tax a bullpen that you don't have a lot of arms that you trust at this point of the year. So getting a deep start from Brandon Neely on Friday is critical for Florida. And it's going to be a tough lineup for him to do it against. But if Brandon Neely can't set the tone on Friday night, can't give you at least 6 innings, you have to go into your bullpen and you really start taxing arms. And Florida has said for a while, Jack's been so good, we feel that we can win every Sunday. We have to find a way to win one of those first 2. If Neely doesn't give you a strong start on Friday, that makes winning Saturday all the more tough.
Definitely. Before I get you out of here, I know you got to go to a football press conference here soon, and Florida plays their spring game this weekend, right?
Yes, 1:00 Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be a good time at the Swamp, I'm sure. But before I get you out of here, who is one player that you would say South Carolina fans should kind of keep an eye on? Obviously, other than like Cags or Colby Shelton, someone like that.
I'll go with Ty Evans. He's having a career year. I think 42 hits is already a career high for a single season. 30 runs is a single season career high. 24 RBIs is getting close to his single season record. He's hitting 339. If I switch it over to conference play, you take out those midweek games, he's still hitting 327 with 3 home runs, 7 RBIs in those 12 games, striking out an absolute metric ton. So kind of a boomer bust with him. He's a guy who drives in a lot of runs, can hit the ball to the opposite field, but strikes out a lot. Ty Evans is a guy who at this point last year was losing his starting job and didn't really play for an entire month leading up to Omaha. He gets to Omaha, and then he forgot that you're allowed to hit the ball inside the ballpark and set the record for most home runs in a single College World Series, and then has just kind of continued that. So a lot of swing and miss from Ty this year, but also has been one of Florida's most productive hitters who really doesn't get the same kind of highlights as Colby Shelton, Tyler Shelnut, and certainly not Jack Caglione.
Yeah. Last real question for you before I let you go. Who is your dark horse pick to win the Masters this year? I'm seeing right now Bryson DeChambeau is up in first place with Scotty Scheffler trailing behind him by 3 strokes. Who you got, man?
My dark horse, I don't know. I hope it doesn't sound stupid because I haven't checked the leaderboard to see where he is. But it's also a sentimental pick. I want Rory to win. I'm not a big live golf guy, and I feel like the PGA Tour really made Rory the face of the anti-live movement, and then took a big fat check and left Rory hanging. So I would love to see Rory do it. I know he's been close. I think he was runner-up in 22. So yeah, I would love to see Rory get it. I also don't like Bryson, so would love to see a big number from him on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully Tiger can, make the cut, make it to Saturday and maybe Sunday. Would love to see a guy like that go out there and win his 6th Masters, which would tie Jack Nicklaus. Nick, awesome. Where can the people find your work and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, you can find us on Gators Online. All of our football, baseball, basketball coverage. We don't have the same kind of women's basketball coverage that you guys do, but they're also not winning at the same rate that you guys are. Dawn Staley's a gangster. I love watching her coach and love watching her teams play. And you can find me on Twitter. It's Delatorre, just my last name. I think it's all the socials are that.
Awesome. Well, Nick, I really appreciate your time, man. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend. And thanks again for joining me today.
You got it, Jack.
All right. Thanks, man. That was Nick Delatorre from GatorsOnline.com. Thank you to Nick for joining me today. And if you're still tuning in, hello there. Happy Thursday. Like I said, the Masters is going on. Got it on the background here. It's that kind of thing where you're watching it and you kind of have to keep up with it. I'll run through my Masters story at the end of this show, but it is just me this week. Joe is at the Masters working. He is there. I believe he's there with the University of South Carolina has a program set up with the Masters where students go and work concessions and the gift shop, that sort of thing. So he's there doing that. He's done that for the last few years, as I know. And, I think we're going to have him back on next week, hopefully. So looking forward to having him on, and we'll chat it up about his trip to the Masters. I'm sure he's got a lot of good stories to tell from that. But on a real note with baseball, let's talk a little bit of South Carolina real quick. Then we'll hit some ads and then talk Masters real quick, and then we'll get on out of here. But, South Carolina. I know we just talked all about Florida, but South Carolina is I guess they're back on track. I'm not sure how to really describe it. Obviously, they lost the series to Texas A&M over the weekend, but you'll win that final game of that series to salvage the series and not get swept. And you played pretty good ball up until the end where your offense kind of has a few base load situations where you're not scoring runs and then the pitching almost gave it up. But you get the win, so that's the important part. And look, it's tough winning in the SEC. I think I've said it 1,000 times now. It's not going to be your weekend. And, look at Florida, for instance. That's a good baseball team. That's a team that finished runner-up in the College World Series last year and is, now 17-15 on the year. And, they just lost their last 4 games. And I think, South Carolina fans would be having a panic attack if they were in the situation that Florida's in right now. So I think South Carolina is going to be fine long-term. And then on Tuesday up in Charlotte, I think what you learned from that game is that, okay, while you didn't pitch Garrett Gainey or Chris Veach because they had pitched 2 days earlier, they were unavailable. You're able to get outs from other guys in your bullpen. It starts with Dylan Eskew, who I thought pitched all right. Nothing crazy, but I thought he pitched fine enough. And then you get Roman Kimball out there, and he pitches beautifully. Just what you needed for his confidence sake and all that sort of stuff. And then you get Parker Marlock coming in, gives up a run. Okay. Connor McCreary comes in the final 2 1/3 innings and just shoves. And he's able to shut the door. And the crazy part about it all is that Mark Kingston didn't even have anyone warming up in the 9th inning, which I thought was, foolish at the time because McCreary was getting up in pitch count a little bit. But he trusted him, and he rode with him to the end. And McCreary ended up getting the win. And South Carolina beat North Carolina 2-1 on Tuesday night in Charlotte. But none of that happens without Dylan Brewer, who in the 8th inning had the big go-ahead RBI double just when South Carolina couldn't do anything with runners in scoring position. And that's a whole nother problem with this team, is that they just strike out a ton. They can't hit consistently with runners in scoring position, guys on base. And, you're facing a team like Florida this weekend, and you do that stuff again, who knows what happens? You might end up getting swept. But, we're not going to think that way right this second. I think this will be a good series. But anyway, with Dylan Brewer, that's a big hit. Ultimately gave South Carolina the 2-1 win. And, it wasn't the prettiest win. It wasn't the highest scoring win, but it is a win. And it's over a ranked team, by the way. Number 13 in the country, that's where North Carolina sits. And that's a massive game. So to be able to win that one was really big. Now you go into a series where, I was in Gainesville last year to watch Hurston Waldrop just annihilate South Carolina on the mound in that season finale loss. This is a big one. Rematch at the Super Regional last year where South Carolina got swept, and they're looking to definitely avenge that series. Obviously, it's not going to hold the same weight as a Super Regional because it is just a regular season series after all. But from speaking to Eli Jones and Ethan Petrie and Mark Kingston yesterday during their media availability, it seems like it's still on the minds of them. And that's a good thing, I guess, to be, wanting to, erase that bad memory and get a series win this weekend. It would really go a long way to winning this weekend series. I think both teams have so much at stake. Florida, both teams are actually 6-6 in conference play. And whoever wins this weekend, series-wise, really has the leg up moving forward, in my opinion. Because we are kind of nearing the halfway point of SEC play. I think we only have, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Georgia, and then Tennessee, I believe, to end the year. So you got five SEC series left after this one. And it's really, it's not win or go home right necessarily, but I mean, look, Arkansas is number 1 in the country. You're facing a good Kentucky team the week after that. To say South Carolina needs to win this series is an understatement. They have to win this series. I think there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Just you got to do it. You got to win 2 or 3. You have to win one of the first 2 games. I don't care if whatever it takes, in my opinion, to win one of those 2 games. South Carolina has struggled so much to get the job done in the first 2 games of series lately. And outside of that Vanderbilt series where they played exceptional the entire weekend, it really has been a struggle. And then for some reason, game 3s, they end up just flipping a switch and they're able to win. So I don't know what it is. If you can get to Sunday with a series on the line where you can go out there and win the series, I think you're in a great spot. I think the confidence is there to go out and do it. You just have to be able to, can you beat Brandon Neely game 1? Can you, sustain a good offensive outing? And then obviously you're going to face Jack Hegley on Sunday. I think you really have to be able to win game 1 or 2 to get to that point of, okay, let's go out there and try to win a series now. We really did hit on Florida a lot. In case you missed it, Nick Torre joined me earlier. He's a Florida Gators senior writer for Gators Online with On3. So, again, thank you for him for joining. But, yeah, I think the keys for South Carolina this weekend are you need good starting pitching. Eli Jones has to go out there, and he can't get roughed up again like he did last week. But I think he's going to do fine. And then I believe Ty Good starting on Saturday, and I was on 107.5 The Game yesterday and talking with Jay and Elijah just about what the rotation might look like. My guess was that it was going to be Jones, Becker, Good. and I was right. Just the order was a little wrong. It's going to end up being Jones, Good, Becker. And I think that's a good 1-2-3 punch. Matthew Becker, as we saw last week, pitched pretty good. Gave up a run, but over 4 innings. I think this weekend, now that he's on full rest, he's going to be able to go 5, 6, hopefully maybe 7 innings, and go up against Jack Caglione on Sunday. And then Ty Good, like I said, he pitched really well at the bullpen last week, and I think South Carolina's got the pitching matchup. I think they can win the pitching department. Offensively speaking, I think Florida's a better offensive team. I think they can go out there and score a ton of runs. But it really depends on whether or not South Carolina's going to be able to, hit with runners in scoring position. If not, then this series could go either way. But I think you have to be feeling good as a South Carolina fan right now, after being able to take that game against North Carolina when it felt like for a time, oh, here we go again. South Carolina get the tying run. Are they going to be able to hold on, this and that? But they were, and I think it's like I said before, it's tough winning in college baseball. But South Carolina's at 23-10 right now, I believe, and I think they've really got a good chance moving forward to do some damage here. So let's get into some quick ad reads, and then we'll give my final thoughts. First up, our sponsors over at Liberty Tax. Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call on the tax team at Liberty Tax. They're fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, though, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. They're locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. They're open 99 weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays. There are multiple service options, which include you can start through Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. You can make an appointment or just walk in. You can give a call to upload your tax documents. And when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. On your screen right now, for those listening, 803-462-5576. Again, the number to call Liberty Tax at is 803-462-5576. And our second sponsor of the evening is the man above us, Mr. Clint Hammond. Are you in need of help with your mortgage? You can call on our good friend Clint Hammond at the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call at the number above. Again, that number is 803-771-6933. Again, that phone number to call Mr. Clint Hammond at is 803-771-6933. All right, so we're in the final minutes of our show this evening. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Always appreciate it, and hope you guys had a good time listening and all that. With this series, it is really a redemption time for South Carolina. Look, being at that super regional last year was just a lot of things really could have gone right for South Carolina, but they didn't. You have the lead in game 1 of that series, and you blow it late. And then game 2, Hurston Waldrop, like I've said before, just so good. There's a reason why he was drafted pretty high and all this and that. But now, look, the teams are different, right? South Carolina lost some guys. You don't have Braylon Wimmer, Will McGillis, Will Sanders, guys like that anymore, Jack Mahoney. But it's the same thing with Florida. They lost guys like B.T. Riopelle, Wyatt Langford. They added guys like Colby Shelton, Jack Caglione's back. The pitching staff's shaken up. There's no Sprout anymore. Guys like that were really critical in Florida getting to where they got last year, and it's kind of having a toll on them. So while Florida is struggling right now, it does worry me that maybe this is the weekend where things just click for them. And of course, it would come against South Carolina, which feels like it's almost a trap series in a way too. But I think South Carolina does control its own destiny this weekend. They do have everything they need, I think, to go out and play a really solid series. You have the pitching, you have the bullpen. I think you have the offense. Maybe you're getting Cole Messina back this weekend. We're not 100% sure on that, but Mark Kingston was talking like he might end up playing this weekend, which would be huge. But if not, you have Dalton Reeves, who I think has been doing a pretty fine job in Messina's absence. But we'll see what happens with all that. I do think it's going to be a huge series, and we'll have so much content for you guys on GamecockCentral.com throughout the weekend, win or lose. I'll be there in Gainesville for that whole series, and hopefully the weather's better this time around, right? Last year going to that Super Regional, the weather was atrocious. We had such long delays in games 1 and 2, and it was just unbelievable. And I mean, Florida weather, it is what it is, but always enjoy going there, and I'll be heading down there tomorrow morning. And first game of that series is at 6:30 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus. Before I get out of here, thank you guys again for tuning in. It is Masters Week. I thought I'd just share my Masters story real quick. It's a good one. I enjoyed it. It was unbelievable. First time ever going. I had gotten a text while I was at the Alabama series in Tuscaloosa, or I should say a call from one of my buddies who works over at the state. And he had called late at night after one of the games, and we're talking, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Masters?" And I'm like, "Dude, shut up. What are you talking about? Like, what?" And he's covering the Masters for the state this weekend, and he had a pair of extra tickets to go. And like immediately, I'm like, "All right, I'll cancel whatever plans I got going on. I'll be there. Thank you so much." All this and that. A few weeks later, on Tuesday this week, ended up leaving around 4:45 in the morning to go. I accidentally woke up at 3 in the morning, got to get some water, and couldn't go back to sleep because I didn't want to miss an opportunity like this, oversleeping or anything. I have a tendency to do that from time to time. So I was up from 3 a.m. all the way until midnight because keep in mind, I had to go straight from Augusta to Charlotte to go cover baseball. So if you can't, I mean, honestly, I don't know how I did it. It was insane. Very long day, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. The Masters, though, it was unbelievable. Unlike anything you'll ever see. Like I was kind of talking about with Nick before, who also went to the Masters this week. If you've ever been to Disney or Disney World or Disneyland, it's kind of like that. You're waiting to go inside, the course and stuff. You wait at this gate and you're just sitting there waiting for like a rope drop type scenario where you go through security and then you're going inside. First stop of the day was the pro shop, and it was unbelievable. It's like I was telling my brother this earlier in the week. It's kind of like going to the downtown Disney or whatever and going in the World of Disney store there. It's if you've ever been to Florida or California to go to the main Disney shop there, it's kind of like that. It's huge, it's packed, lots of stuff, lots of action, but people are going crazy. I went with my buddy's girlfriend, and I lost her for like a few minutes, and I was freaking out, having a panic attack because you can't have your phone there either. So when I was in the pro shop, I was looking for her, and there's swarms of people everywhere, and it's tough to find her and stuff. And so eventually, I caught wind of her and spent a lot of money at the Masters. Got this polo, got a hat, this and that. Got another polo, and then of course the mini gnome. So I guess gnomes are a pretty big thing there, but yeah. So I don't know what it is. Food wise, I was telling Nick before. They have the pimento cheese sandwiches there, which are $1.50. But I ultimately decided to get a pimento cheese sandwich and their chicken biscuit. And get this. This is a little inside secret for y'all listening. And again, I appreciate y'all tuning in. You take the chicken off the biscuit. And you open it's so the pimento cheese sandwich is 2 pieces of like Wonder Bread. It's what it basically was. 2 pieces of white bread with the spread of pimento cheese. You take apart the pimento cheese sandwich and you put the chicken on there and leave everything else the way it was. It's unbelievable. It makes that sandwich, that pimento cheese sandwich, so much better. And I'm not even the biggest fan of pimento cheese. but it was unbelievable. I ended up doing it twice during that day because, again, you're only at the Masters once, so you might as well live it up. The only other thing I had there, I had some lemonade, which I thought was pretty good. I didn't drink caffeine until like 7 o'clock at night, so I definitely struggled there. But I ended up also getting the peach ice cream sandwich on my way out, which was really good. Again, the Masters, just unbelievable. Got to see Tiger Woods, Justin Thomas, and Fred Couples all play together in a practice round. Also got to see Dustin Johnson and Max Homa. I'm trying to think who else I maybe saw. I didn't get to see Scotty Scheffler. Didn't get to see Spieth. Didn't get to see Rory just because I was only there for half the day. But still, unbelievable experience. It's a beautiful course. Everything you could have ever dreamed of. I brought a camera with me, took a ton of pictures. I've been uploading a few to Twitter here and there, but there's no experience like it. If you ever have the chance to go to Augusta, I highly 1,000% suggest it. Drop whatever plans you got. You got a wedding to go to, drop it. Go to the Masters. If you have the opportunity, if you're fortunate enough like I was, you will not regret it at all. And I think that's a good way to end this week's show. Again, thank you to my friend Jordan for inviting me to come to the Masters. Unbelievable experience. Something that you can only wish to go to, and it's incredible, right? It's nothing like you see on TV. That is for absolutely sure. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of GC Live Fowl Balls. I'll be, like I said before, I'll be in Gainesville all weekend starting tomorrow. And then it's going to be a 5-day road trip for me. I plan on just going straight to Charleston after for Tuesday's game against the Citadel in that area. And it's going to be a fun time, a lot of travel. That's kind of what baseball is right now. But I'm looking forward to it. Again, first pitch tomorrow night is at 6:30 p.m. on SEC Network. Plus, from Gainesville, I'll have all your coverage there with game stories, live updates, leaving the yard, quick takes right after the game, and that sort of thing. It's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to it. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. And, have a great weekend and enjoy the Masters if you're going to watch or if you're there. Would love to hear your stories as to, how it's been. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Have a good